Eto na ang programang magiging gabay mo upang ikaw ay matuto. DepEd 12 Radyo Eskwela. Makinig at matuto. DepEd 12 Radyo Eskwela. Alternatibong programang handog ng DepEd Soxergen na kahit saan ka man ay matututo ka. DepEd 12 Radyo Eskwela.
Naguguluhan, nalilito. Paano ba kung matututo?
Good day to our grade 10 students. This is your school on the air in grade 10 English. We are glad to be learning with you through radio. I am Miss Hera Joy Alcahoy from Buayan National High School. Make sure that you are in your most comfortable place and can clearly hear our broadcast. Have you eaten your meal? In order for you to learn and understand our lesson this day properly, it would be better if you have already eaten your meal. This time, I want you to bring out your handout. Again, let me remind you that our lesson for today is about comparing and contrasting the contents of the materials viewed. Specifically, differentiating comparison and contrast using the various graphic organizers. Okay, everyone, please bring out your handout now. Okay, everyone, before we will begin with a new lesson, let's take a look and review the concepts you have learned in the past lesson. I hope that you can still remember all our previous lesson. Can you still remember what we have learned last time? Anyone? Very good. In the previous lesson, we have learned about the definition of comparing and contrasting. Let us start with the word compare. Compare is taken from the Latin word comparare, which means to liken or to compare. Comparing things means pointing out their similarities or what they have in common. Contrast, on the other hand, is derived from the Latin words contra and stare, which means against and to stand. In Middle English, contrast was used for meaning to fight against or to withstand in a battle. Contrasting things mean pointing out their differences or where they diverge from one another. This time, please be ready to learn our new lesson. Are you ready? If you want to go to the toilet or drink water, do it now because a few moments from now, we are going to start. Hello? Are you back, dear students? Please get your notebook and pen now. As what I have said a while ago, our lesson for today is about comparing and contrasting the content of the materials viewed. Specifically, differentiating comparison and contrast using the various graphic organizers. Please bring out your handout so you can follow me. This is our module number 4, lesson number 2. Later, we will have a short quiz. If you will listen very carefully and attentively to the lesson, I am sure you can answer the questions well. So good luck, learners, and enjoy the lesson. Good day again, grade 10 students. I am back. Our lesson for today is about comparing and contrasting the contents of the materials viewed, specifically differentiating comparison and contrast using the various graphic organizers. Are you ready? Please get your notebook and ball pen because we are now going to start our lesson. In the previous lesson, we talked about the definition of compare and contrast. How far is your learning about our topic? Have you learned something about our previous lesson? And we all know that comparing and contrasting are part of decision making in life. For example, in choosing your path or career by next year. For us to know about the ideas of comparison and contrast, we will use a Venn diagram organizer to easily understand the concept of both. First, we will define the organizer. So let us now start. One of the main reasons that people use comparison and contrast is to number one, to explain. You might compare and contrast kinds of food. For instance, to help someone understand which food needs to have refrigerated and which can be stored in a cabinet or in a bowl on the counter. Number two, to evaluate. You might compare and contrast kinds of food to show what kind of food or brand of food is better than another. For example, apples are better snack than butter. When you choose items to compare and contrast, make sure that you choose items that have similarities. You have to choose things that will make sense for comparison and contrast. For instance, it wouldn't make sense to compare a truck with a crayon or crayons with a birdhouse. Be sure to compare things that belong together. Compare crayons to pencils or pens, or compare trucks and cars. When you compare items, you look for their similarities, the things that make them the same. For you to understand more on comparing and contrasting, I want you to bring out your self-learning module, page 11. Okay everyone, please bring out your self-learning module number 4 so you can follow with the lesson. This lesson requires you to open your modules since we will be talking comparing and contrasting, and needs to look and identify the different graphic organizers used to compare and contrast. Before we continue, I want you to open your self-learning module on page 12. I want you to answer activity 2.1. Fill in the missing data in the following Venn diagram, which scientifically compares a butterfly and a moth. Use critical thinking and select only relevant information based on the topic from the following list. Draw the Venn diagram and write all your answers in your answer sheet. Hello again, grade 10 students. Let us continue with our lesson. Have you answered your activity? We will check that later, okay? Now, for the continuation of our lesson, a Venn diagram is a graphic organizer that is made up of 2 or 3 overlapping circles. In mathematics, Venn diagrams are used to visualize the relationship between 2 or 3 sets. A chart diagram, also called a matrix diagram or table, is a type of graphic organizer that condenses and organizes data about multiple traits associated with many items or topics. Charts can be used to show attributes of items, to compare and contrast topics, and to evaluate information. Can you identify now the different graphic organizers? Very good, students. For you to understand more, here are some explanations. A comparison and contrast pattern organizes ideas based on how events, places, people, things, and concepts are similar to or different from one another. Comparing things mean pointing out their similarities or what they have in common. Contrasting things mean pointing out their differences or where they diverge from one another. Are you still there, learners? Let us continue. When to use comparison contrast. Use comparison and contrast to show that one thing is better or worse than another. Things that seem alike are actually different. Things that seem different are actually alike. Concentrate on the most important parts of a comparison contrast pattern. The purpose of comparison, points of comparison, and the actual similarities and differences of the item being compared. Can you identify now the different graphic organizers used to compare and contrast? Very good. To compare or contrast, you need two subjects that have a basis for comparison, or BFC. A basis for comparison is an essential common element that makes it logical to compare the two items. There are many ways to compare and contrast the features of items, people, events, and etc. Many types of graphic organizers make it easier to examine the similarities and differences, including Venn diagrams, charts, and others. I hope that you have understood our lesson today about comparing and contrasting using the different graphic organizers. We will do the recap later after some reminders. Good luck on your short quiz! And we are back on our School on the Air. We have learned a while ago about comparing and contrasting the contents of the materials viewed, specifically differentiating comparison and contrast using the various graphic organizers. We enjoyed the lesson, right? And we are back once again on School on the Air, Grade 10 English. I shared about comparing and contrasting the content of the materials viewed, specifically differentiating comparison and contrast using the various graphic organizers. Please open your notes again and let us review what you have learned today. Let us review what we have learned today. Are you ready, students? Okay, let us start. A Venn diagram is a graphic organizer that is made up of 2 or 3 overlapping circles. In mathematics, Venn diagrams are used to visualize the relationship between 2 or 3 sets. A chart diagram, also called a matrix diagram or a table, is a type of graphic organizer that condenses and organizes data about multiple traits associated with many items or topics. Charts can be used to show attributes of items, to compare and contrast topics, and to evaluate information. Can you still remember the 2 reasons that people use comparison and contrast? Anybody? Do you have that in your notes? Very good, students. The 2 main reasons that people use comparison and contrast are as follows: to explain and to evaluate. I believe that you have learned a lot from the very start of our lesson. It's a pleasure that you will perfectly remember the significant point of your lesson. Now that we are done with our lesson, it's time to measure your knowledge on what you have learned today. Please bring out your quiz form. Please write your name, section, and date today. Please do not forget the lesson number for this quiz today. Module number 4, lesson number 2. Good, that is correct. Are you ready? Please set aside your notes and listen very carefully. Now that you have learned much from the start of our lesson, it's time for you to check what you have learned. I will be giving you 3 questions for this quiz. Listen very carefully. Please fill in the blanks with the appropriate word or phrase that correctly fits in each of the sentences about compare and contrast. For you to follow, you can open your self-learning module on page 13, activity 2.2. Okay, please bring it out. Ready? Here is question number 1. Blank is taken from the Latin word comparare, which means to liken or to compare. Question number 2. Comparing things mean pointing out their blank or what they have in blank. Question number 3. Contrast was derived from Latin words blank and blank, which means against and to stand. In Middle English, contrast was used for meaning to fight against or to withstand in a battle. For activity 2.3, use a Venn diagram to find the similarities and differences between an airplane and a bus. All answers must be written in your answer sheet. I will give you 2 to 3 minutes to finish your answers. Go on. That ends our short quiz for today. Have you answered all the questions, students? Make sure that you have written all the important details in your quiz form. If you have more questions, please do not hesitate or include to write it down. If you have any questions you would like to clarify, please write them down as well. Okay, so I wanted to bring out and check your answers in the previous activity I have given you. Activity 2.1 on the similarities and differences of a butterfly and a moth. Please bring out your activity and please check your answers honestly. For the similarities, has 3 pair of legs, has 6 wings. For the differences, hatches from cocoon, looks pretty, featured in Rizal's story, hatches from chrysalis. Did you get all the correct answers? Wow, that was great. Now let us check your answers in your short quiz. Again, please be honest in checking your own answers. These are the answers. Number 1, compare. Number 2, similarities or common. Number 3, contra and stare. How was your score? Congratulations! The previous activities that we had yielded very nice results. You were able to define and differentiate compare and contrast. For your answers on activity 2.3, your subject teacher will be checking that activity. Did you get all the correct answers on your short quiz? Don't worry if you are not able to get all the correct answers. You can still learn more and do better on your next quiz. Congratulations, students! ends our discussion for today. Another lesson has been learned and understood. To further enhance your understanding on the lesson, please read your handout. You will be notified by your subject teacher through text message for more information and clarification. You can also send your activity to your teacher's email or send a message through Facebook. Make sure to stay tuned in our School on the Air. Till next time, this has been your teacher, Ms. Helen Joy L. Cahoy. Always remember to study well. Have a great day ahead, everyone. God bless. Goodbye.
Bagong araw na naman, bagong kaalaman, bagong matututunan sa paaralang panghimpapawid. Kaming samahan, sabayan ng mga aralin, mga gawain, siguradong kagigiliwan. Oras na, alis na, halina't makinig at matuto sa